Well, howdy friends, Brian Flechsig of Mad River Outfitters in the Midwest Fly Fishing Schools, and welcome back to another fly tying episode, which is why I have a green Regal Revolution sitting next to me, and the owner of that pine, I think it's called Rustic Pine Regal Revolution, is about to enter frame. So friends, let me introduce you to my new, very good friend, Tim Flagler.
Brian, great to meet you in person.
Yeah. It's great to have you
online. It's really good to be here.
And vice versa. We've been watching you for years, and it's just, I was so thrilled when I got the email from your lovely wife and said you guys were coming through and you wanted to stop and meet us and put on a show for our customers, which we're going to do tonight. And and of course, we had to talk Tim into filming for you all, although I'm sure you all watch him at Tightline Productions.
Yep.
Of course. And,
on YouTube.
Yep, and there's a link probably right there, and if not, there's a link down below us. But then I can be a little coercive sometimes. I talked Tim into showing me this parachute thing that I've been seeing this and hearing about this, but I got to see it in person. So thanks for doing this for me.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
It's a different way of tying a parachute. I like parachute style flies, but I've never really been comfortable tying them. And it's just a combination of several different techniques that I use. So standard dry fly hook here, size 12. I'm tying an Isonychia, nice fall fly pattern.
Which is also called slate drake.
Slate drake, yep. And I think there are about 30 other names that people call them throughout the country.
Is it another one, a white-gloved howdy?
Yes, yep. And they do have little white gloves on them. Mm-hmm. And so this is moose body hair. Mm-hmm. Great stuff for tailing material. It's real easy to use. And one of the reasons I like tying this fly is they're kind of a whole bunch of little, I don't want to say tricks, but they're just little things that I do throughout the course of fly tying. That really transfer to other patterns as well. So I'm measuring a tail that's about hook shank in length, and because I'm old and unsteady, I often use the hook shank to brace. Mm-hmm. Makes for a nice clean cut. I'm giving my bobbin a counterclockwise spin as if I'm looking down on it, which causes that first strap of thread to jump rearward. The other thing you got to watch out for with moose body hair is it likes to go down the side of the shank. Okay, so I'm pulling up and slightly toward me as I wrap rearward. And what that does, most of the time, hopefully, is plant those fibers right on top of the hook shank. It doesn't allow one to push down on the far side. Now, here's where we kind of go off the rails in terms of posting a fly. I'm using polypropylene floating yarn, white stuff, pretty standard. You can use EP, trigger point, all sorts of different stuff if you want. But
do you mostly use synthetic on this?
I do, and you'll see in this technique, like this technique would not work with calf tail or calf body hair. This is just a very different technique that works with stranded material like this. So what I'm going to do is I have a card width segment. It doesn't matter how long it is. I want to have a little bit to grab back here, and I'm going to use a pinch wrap and just take nice tight thread wraps rearward. But I'm not going to let go of this. And because I have a little tension on it, it's angled, I can give that stuff, missed a little bit, little snip like that, angled snip, that's going to help with the taper on my body later. Now, I'm winding my tying thread forward. I want a nice, a little bit of space, hook eye and a half, in front of the post, so about like that. Now here's where it gets weird. I'm going to take that Poly Pro and twist it, twisting it clockwise, really tight. And then I take it and fold it over like this. And it twists the Poly Pro so it looks like a cinnamon twist.
That is weird.
Isn't that weird?
That's weird.
Okay, so what we've done is we've added some structure to the Poly Pro, but the big thing for me is if you guys have ever tied with polypropylene and you have just the post sticking up like this, you have these fibers that want to just catch everything, particularly when you're wrapping your hackle. So it accomplishes a couple things. kind of a nervy little part here. I want to snip this off as close as possible. Don't want to snip the post. So I use the angle of the hook eye as a guide and just get that snipped off as close as possible. I'm going to take a wrap or two up there. The other thing that this does, Brian, is a lot of times when we're posting a fly with slippery material like Polypro, it has a tendency to spin around the shank in many of the posting methods. This, we got it anchored both fore and aft. So it's really, really on there. It doesn't rotate around the hook shank as much.
So you took it out, you twisted it, and then when you folded it back down, it turned into a little cinnamon twist.
Yeah.
And then you secured the excess in front of the post.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it.
And this, it's going to look a little weird now, but I promise it'll all come together in the end. So I'm using very fine dubbing for this. It's UV fine and dry in Isonychia color. And just a couple, even really good tires have some problems with dubbing. One of the biggest tips I can give people is squeeze with your fingers down here and pull straight up on the material. And you want to get the fibers aligned with your tying thread. In other words, parallel to your tying thread, as opposed to just pulling a clump off and mashing it on there. Now, this next little tip comes to me, a friend of mine, Tom Baltz, who just won the Orvis Lifetime Achievement Award.
Wow.
He's a longtime guide in Pennsylvania, fabulous parachute tire. He says leave the bottom part of your little dubbing undone, right, untwisted. So with the next clump, again, parallel to your tying thread, but you weave the second clump in with the first. And it makes isn't that a great trick? Who knew?
No. I've always
just right on top.
and gone and tightened the whole thing up and then come over top.
Yeah, really, really smart technique. But again, align them parallel to your tying thread, weave it in, and I'm going to go with that for my noodle for now. Again, we really don't want to overdub. And this dubbing, I need it to cover both the abdomen, thorax, and then even in front of the fly. Okay. And so
that was a cool tip.
Yeah. The other thing, and this was from Rim Chung in Colorado, who invented the RS2.
Right.
If you have a lot of dubbing and it's a thick noodle, just get a wrap of that dubbing around the hook shank. And if you take your fingers, you can then twist the dubbing. You see how much smaller that got? You can just drop that dubbing noodle down. Now, you do have to hold onto the noodle when you wrap, but this is how he gets a beautifully segmented body, on a size 24 RS2, that rear body. So I went from basically having too much dubbing to almost not enough dubbing here. In fact, I got to put a little more on just to cover that.
So you twisted the noodle itself, but then you have to hold it
While you wrap.
While you wrap, because if you don't do that, it's gonna
it just loosens up.
Yeah.
And you do have to make that twist work. You do have to have one wrap of dubbing around the hook shank. Okay, you can't just do that with bare thread. The dubbing actually has to be anchored first.
I gotcha.
Okay,
because that's what you said. It anchors it.
right.
Yeah.
And so I'm just going to fill in this space right in here. Another tip that I got to give you guys, if you want to improve your fly tying straight away, one of the best things you can do is really concentrate on wrapping with good tension and keep it going all the way around. We all have a tendency to kind of lob our wraps over like this, but if you can keep that tension all the way around, almost immediately you'll notice your flies look better. They just look tighter, and they're going to stay together, everything. I always check the far side just to make sure I don't have a white spot sticking out there. All right, this is where it gets weird. I have a hackle feather here. This is from my buddy, give him a little plug, Evan Brand at Sidling Hill Hackle out in Pennsylvania. He's a breeder. And he actually is breeding birds from Charlie Collins' bloodline, who was famous breeder
Sure.
in the Catskills. And so Evan's got his bloodline. which is really, really cool that he's carrying that on. Neat fibers on these things. A lot of character to them. So what I have, I don't know whether you can see that, I've got bare stem, and I have a little extra space, shiny side of the feathers facing me, a little extra space that's going to help the hackle to wrap correctly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to lay that stem against the near side of the hook, and as I wrap, that feather's going to twist just a little bit, okay? But because I have that cinnamon twist post, I don't need a gallows, you know, hack or whatever it is, hackle pliers.
Yeah, the gallows tool.
Yeah, to support that. I'm just using my fingers. I'm going to wrap about 1/8 of an inch up, and then all the way back down the post. I want this to be nice and smooth, though. The smoother it is, the better the hackle is going to wrap. If you have lumps and bumps in there, that hackle stem is just going to go all over the place. Next thing, and this is where it gets really weird, I'm going to rotate in my vise. Not quite 90 degrees. I don't want the weight of my bobbin to just spin my thread off the post, which I'm sure has happened to just about everybody. Going to grab tip. Notice I'm leaving my thread right there at the base of the post. Okay. What I want to do is wrap behind my tying thread. And so each wrap, because I'm picking up on the weight of the bobbin, is keeping those wraps sandwiched really close together. I use this technique on any multi-stranded material, as well as, you know, wraps like this. But when you're wrapping peacock curl, pheasant tail, stuff like that, when you have multi-strands, it really works. So I don't go crazy with the hackle wraps here. I don't really see the need. I call it Instagram hero hackle, when you know it looks like a stack of pancakes going up and people are stripping one side of the feather off.
Now, one other thing that I noticed, you left the stem of the feather in there. You did not trim that.
I didn't trim that. I'm going to trim that now.
Okay.
I can get rid of it. You can trim it beforehand or after.
I was wondering if it provided you any rigidity, but maybe not.
No, it does. It requires trimming anyhow.
Okay.
In fact, we can trim that right now. If you bend the stem down, you can usually get in there and trim that off. Just like that.
Gotcha.
Now, little kind of tricky part, it's delicate here. I would not suggest hand whip finishing, but we're going to whip finish on top of the post, on top of the hackle. This is where it gets really bizarre, okay? So all I'm going to do, pull my tying thread down, and just a nice, gentle left to right. Very important to go left to right to get the whip finish absolutely correct. Seat that knot really well. I mean, it's like any knot. It has to be seated or it's not going to work. It's not going to function as well. Get my tying scissors in there, cut that off, okay? And so when I bring the fly back up to normal, my tying vise, about like that. See these extra fibers that I got sticking out here? First of all, they're easy to cut off. You can just reach in there and cut them off. But what I'm going to do here is take the top of the hackle, the parachute post, snip it off, little fluff and blow dry, and there's your post. Now, a couple little extra things here. Is I'm going to use some, this is Sally Hansen, just hard as nails, and I'm going to apply just a single drop to those thread wraps right on top of the post. The cool thing is that Sally Hansen is going to hit those thread wraps, the whip finish, but it's also going to wick down the post. And so it kind of locks all that hackle stem that's wound around there to the post, makes for a super, super durable parachute style fly. But the thing I really like the most is if you look at the underside of the fly, it's super clean. Okay, there are no hackle points pointing down, and perhaps best of all is, you know, in the days of old where we lock the hackle tip behind the eye, you end up putting hackle fibers over the eye. There's absolutely nothing anywhere near that hook eye, so it's always clear.
No, No, it's nothing but dubbing. That's
Yeah.
probably the cleanest parachute I've ever seen tied.
Yeah, it's
That is cool.
and again, I owe a lot to a lot of people who
Sure.
who have contributed techniques that I've picked up over the years.
Well,
to produce
isn't that the cool thing about fly tying?
Oh, it's awesome.
I mean, I've been tying flies for 47 years of my life,
I'm about the same.
and I just learned several cool tricks right there. And then
Yeah.
every time I sit down with Blaine or anybody for that matter, they don't have to be a big name tire. You can learn something
Yeah.
from virtually anybody. But there's some fantastic tires out there that have learned those tricks and are willing to share those tricks.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. But that trick about coming behind your thread.
I use it a lot.
That's the secret.
Yeah, yeah. You'll see me in the tying demonstration. I use that a lot
Yeah.
for many different materials. And but yeah, give it a try.
I'm going to.
Interesting anyway.
I've kind of been in the mode of tying peacock bass flies here recently. I'm getting
So
ready.
just a little bigger.
They're a little bigger than that. That probably wouldn't work in the Amazon.
It might get torn apart. I'm not sure.
But over the winter is usually when I tie a lot of my trout flies, getting ready for trout season. And I am definitely going to try that. That is a cool trick. And I've struggled with parachutes like a lot of people have.
Yeah, yeah. I did for a long time and bounced. I do these for Orvis. I do 1 minute tips and techniques every week. And so if you look at them going back, I have, I don't know, probably 7 or 8 different methods for doing a parachute post. This, I've been doing it this way for about 3 years now, and I don't think I'll ever, I can't imagine going to another way again.
Wow,
it just works for me.
That's so easy.
Yeah, and it's fun to do too, you know, and that's a lot of it. You don't want something that you constantly struggle with.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yep.
fly tying should be fun.
So thanks again, Tim. That was really, really cool. So tell our viewers where they can find more Tim Flagler.
Our videos, gosh, I think it's over 700 now, are primarily on YouTube anymore, and it's at Tightline Video is the way to find them on YouTube, or Practical Patterns is another way to find them, and yeah, that covers a whole range, just about every type of fly imaginable. Plus, every week, or just about every week, we do 1 minute tips with Orvis. And so if you want to learn just little techniques at a time, that's the way to go. It's not like tying a whole fly. You just learn one little technique. And
I think that's the neat thing about what you do is you offer such a variety of, if somebody just wants the little 1 minute snippets or they want the whole thing, you've got it there. So, well, there you have it, friends. Tightline Video. You can check out all of Tim's work there. And thanks as always for being here. We really appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss an exciting episode like this. And be sure to watch this video here because we think that one was pretty good. This one was not as good as that one, but it's pretty good too. So thanks. Did you think that one? That video?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, it was not bad. I like this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.